estar con un gran amigo personal, como lo es el señor Oliver Velez, que para que ustedes tengan una idea, tiene muchísimo tiempo básicamente haciendo el entrenamiento a esa gente que como ustedes nos está mirando y está tratando de entender cómo funcionan los mercados. Además de que no solamente es un profesional que tiene muchísimos años de experiencia, fue presidente de una compañía que se llama pristine.com y después todo eso ha crecido en otras áreas fundamentales, sino que también fue una de las primeras personas que me tendió una mano para llegar a Estados Unidos y se convirtió inclusive en el padrino de mi boda. Así que le doy un aplauso a mi querido amigo Oliver. How are you? How you doing? Happy to see you, happy to interview you. So I would like to straightforward ask you, what do you think about the Bitcoin? Because obviously I know you love the asset class, and thank you for joining us in the Negocios TV.
Well, thank you very much for having me, Victor. It's nice seeing you. It's been quite a while, actually, since the last time I've seen you. But thank you for having me. Listen, yeah, I actually came into Bitcoin in March of 2020 and recognized it at that particular time as a tradable asset that had, for me, a decent amount of tradable volatility. Shortly after that, and after doing some additional research on the asset, I began to realize that it was absolutely more than just a tradable asset, that this was a perfect form of money, a form of money that in reality the human race has never really truly had. This was an asset, a commodity, a currency, all wrapped in one. And it had a true, honest ledger that is immutable. And so I began to fall in love with the asset and began to view it more than just an asset, but an actual solution to the debasement of currencies that's happening all around the globe today.
Excellent. And listen, do you know that a lot of the institutional guys in Wall Street and in other areas in the world, they have been pushing for some sort of institutional vehicles where institutions can invest. And recently we got approvals in the last administration for some ETF. We see a lot of people putting money into the asset class. But the reality is that within the last few weeks, we saw a retracement, and I'm talking about the Bitcoin, from the, let's say, 100,000 plus to the 80s, sometimes even below the 70-something. What do you think about that? What do you think that's happening, knowing that the institutional guys have all the knowledge, the resources to put this asset class north of 150 or 200,000?
Well, you know, first of all, it's quite amazing that the Bitcoin of today is very different from the Bitcoin when I first got involved with it in 2020. Bitcoin today has regulatory clarity. We have spot Bitcoin ETFs. We have the first, obviously, pro-Bitcoin US president. We have institutional sponsorship, and Bitcoin is the fastest adopted technology known to mankind up until this particular point. So yes, it is true that Bitcoin has pulled back, as has all assets for the most part. And this is par for the course as far as Bitcoin is concerned. The average Bitcoin pullback during bull periods in Bitcoin actually supersedes 30%. This pullback is a little bit less than that. And what we're finding from a technical perspective is that because of institutional adoption and because of the spot Bitcoin ETFs putting in a permanent institutional bid in the Bitcoin market, that demand is actually shrinking the volatility of Bitcoin. So what we're seeing is that its normal pullbacks of 38%, 35% are actually becoming more and more rare. The average bear market decline in Bitcoin typically is around 70, 75, close to 80% during bear periods. It's our take that those days are gone forever. There will be bear periods in Bitcoin. This is not one of them, by the way. There will be future bear periods in Bitcoin, but those bear periods will be a lot shallower in our opinion. And in addition to that, they will come less frequently, and the duration of those bear periods to the downside will be a lot shorter. But this pullback is very, very normal. It falls within the historical range of Bitcoin's bull market pullbacks. And I do not believe that the top in Bitcoin is in, nor do I believe the top in general markets are in. I think that things are being, all the stars and the planets, if you were, are being aligned for a very, very powerful second half of 2025. And by the last quarter of 2025, I see Bitcoin ripping to all-time new highs, as well as the as well as the equity markets as well.
Bueno, give me 1 second, Oliver. I'm going to tell them in Espanol quickly while you are trying to tell us in your exposure. Listen, Oliver nos está diciendo una parte fundamental de cómo él entró en marzo del 2020 en este proceso de entender la moneda, que no solamente era un activo que se podía utilizar para tratar de especular y hacer ganancias, sino una solución, como él percibe todo esto, para muchos de los que lamentablemente no tienen acceso a ciertas maneras de transar y de poder específicamente mover el dinero. La otra cosa que le pareció muy interesante es el hecho de que normalmente cuando se ven los gráficos y la parte técnica de la parte de maduración de un activo como este, hay una caída que probablemente en algunos casos puede ser hasta del 30% cuando tomamos el tope hasta donde se debe ubicar, y que esta caída es menor a lo que vimos anteriormente porque él siente que el activo va madurando y en el futuro pues las caídas van a ser cada vez menores, además de que se atreve a pronosticar de que probablemente esto sea por la primera parte del 2025 y que para finales del 2025 veamos el Bitcoin y otras de las monedas subiendo. And that being said, I'm going to ask Oliver in this last question for his intervention today. Oliver, where do you see the Bitcoin? We are at around $87,000 plus change. Where do you see the Bitcoin at the end of 2025?
All right. Well, okay. I'll say this. Bitcoin's last cycle had a low of $3,800. It 21x'd from that low during last cycle. Now, the low of this cycle is around 16,000. If we were to 21x if we were to equal what Bitcoin did last cycle without regulatory clarity, without spot Bitcoin ETFs, without institutional sponsorship, without FASB rule changes, which no longer make it punitive for publicly traded companies to put it in their treasuries, without nation states adopting Bitcoin, without all of that, Bitcoin 21x'd. If we assume that Bitcoin is going to do that or more this cycle because it's actually a more provable asset this cycle, then that puts us upwards close to $400,000 per Bitcoin, which is not out of the question. It would fall perfectly within Bitcoin's statistical moves during its 3-year bull run. So I'm going to say $350,000 to $400,000.
Wow, Oliver, I'm very happy you are super passionate, your optimism towards the asset class. We're very happy to have you here at Negocios TV in this launch of Negocios TV America. We're going to invite you because you know about this asset class. You work with a lot of retail traders. Not only that, you really know how to read those charts. Actually, you teach me back in the days. So I'm very, very happy to have you here, and hopefully we'll see you soon, okay?
Thank you, Victor. Thanks for having me. Thank you.